Fish trade is important for a number of reasons. First of all, trade in fish and fishery products is much more important than trade in many other food products. For example, we know that almost 40%, between 1/3 and 40% of all fish and fishery products that are produced in the world, in fact, enter international trade. And this means that the fishery sector is incredibly globalized, it's incredibly international, it's incredibly vital, meaning that products that may be produced in Senegal or Malaysia or Norway end up in factories and on the table in countries thousands and thousands of kilometers away from, in fact, where it was produced. So you have trade flows all over the world with fish products going from the source of origin through production and processing, through distribution channels, and then in the end to the consumer. So this is one, I think, aspect which makes it so exciting. The second issue is that most of production in the fishery sector, whether it's aquaculture or captive fisheries, takes place in developing countries. So we have a situation in which developing countries produce, process, and export much of their production. And this is itself also very interesting and important, because through this exports and the processing and the distribution, a lot of economic value is generated through jobs and other activities locally. So also for that reason, fish trade is very important to the economy of many of these countries in the world that really depend on fish production, processing and trade in order to reap the benefits out of the resources they have. And another issue which is very important is that so much of the trade takes place between developing and developed countries. In fact, a number of developed countries, most big markets in fact, depend on imports to satisfy the needs of their consumers. So they depend on the developing countries to produce what the market in these countries actually want. And that is another sort of very stimulating and challenging aspect of the fishery sector and fish trade. And then maybe the most recent and maybe most interesting and encouraging news is that trade now is not only a question of developing countries producing and exporting to developed countries. It's also a question of developing countries producing and exporting to other developing countries. In fact, in the world today, the growth in the economy is much higher in the developing world than in the developed world. So consumers in Africa, in Asia, in Latin, Central America, in fact, look to fish products, and they're more and more interested in consuming and buying fish and fishery products.